G'day, Ben from Duck Playing Chicken here, and we are going to start setting up the wiring for the LEDs in these three multi-deck carriers. So I've got these two and also this one. So in the last video we looked at sort of just constructing them. Now it's time to sort out the wiring. So I'm going to start with the very top deck, and if I take this piece off, I plan to put an LED at the back here, and it will be able to come out through the wires for it, will be able to come out through this gap. So I can show you what that looks like on the prototype that I did. So you can see the top deck. If I take that off, you can see that I've just blue tacked it in, but it's an LED that's sort of in that top bit, so that will add a bit of interest, you know, just a bit of light, hopefully sort of coming out through that gap. So there'll be an LED going there, and the LEDs that I'm using are 0603 with 20 centimeter leads on them. And so I just picked these up on eBay, and when you have a look at the size of these things, they are tiny and they are perfect for this sort of application. So yeah, just those details again. Now these are warm white LEDs, so what I plan to do in order to get some colour, especially for the ones that come out of the engines, I plan to just use a bit of clear paint to tint them. So I think that will probably be the easiest way to go. Alright, so there'll be one that I will position. These things are fiddly. And what I'll be doing is I'll probably be using some UV resin just to actually stick it in there. But first I want to get some paint on it. So I'm trying to work out whether I do the painting first or you know, mask it later. But I think I might at least give it a black primer in here before I put this in, and then I'll paint the rest of it. So that's where one's going to go. The next two are going to go on this engine bit. So we can see these two cones here, and in order to drill these out, you can see those two cones in the end of the engine cans there. What I need to do is basically sand them down enough so that I can get a drill in there. At the moment, if you try to drill those out, the drill's going to slip and make a horrible mess. So what I'm going to use my trusty nail drill. And again, the good thing about these is that you can take them right down as far as the RPM, so that they're not just melting the plastic, you know, like what a Dremel does. So this thing, you can have it go really slow. You can see that's really slow, and then you can turn it right up high. So it's good, you've got that adjustable speed. So I'm using this sort of bit here that I'm going to basically press. I'm going to press in here and try to flatten that cone down so that I can at least get a drill in there. So you can see that's giving me just enough of a flat edge that I can start the drill. And in order to do that, I'm going to use my hobby knife here, and I'm going to basically pin it in the center and then twist. So that'll give me a starting point for the drill. So even though I'm just using a pin vise, you still want to be able to start the yeah, put a centre punch in there. Okay, so for the drill I'm going to use, I've got this, this is just a cheap box of twist drill bits from 0.3 to 1.6 millimeters. So what I'm using is actually a 0.85 to start with. If I can pick it up, because it's quite... so it's always better to start with a smaller drill rather than just going straight in with a large drill bit. And what you want to do is you want to slowly drill through, but you want to sort of check it just to make sure you're getting it as central as you can. There's a little bit of detail around the inside of the engine can that I want to keep if I can. And I'm not pressing very hard, I'm letting the drill do all the work. You can see we're through on this one, and I need to drill it out a bit more. There's still a little bit of the can there. What I want to do is drill it out completely. So we'll just do the other one first. Again, nice and slow. And the thing is that this is probably the most fiddly bit. The rest of the setting up the path for the wiring is actually pretty straightforward. So this is probably the most fiddly bit, and I know with something at this size, I think I was kind of fortunate that it is actually pretty straightforward. Again, I'm not putting any pressure on, I'm letting the drill do all the work, checking it every now and then just to make sure I'm staying centered. Yeah, I've got the pilot holes. So now I need to step up the size, so I'm going from a 0.85 to a 1.2 millimeter drill. I don't think it really matters whether you go 1.2 or 1.5. I know 1.5 drill bits are a bit easy to get your hands on. Don't ask me what that is in old money, because I can't tell you with drill bits. Alright, so I'll just again make sure the drill bit's lined up. Let the drill bit do all the work. That hole's now a bit bigger. Go drill out the other one. Alright, so both of these holes are now done. They're quite small, and there is just a little bit of a lip, a little bit of an edge in here, so I'm just going to run craft knife around just to tidy that up. Alright, now the other thing that I'll do, I've got a few more holes to do on this piece, but what I'll do is I'll just run a little bit of Tamiya extra thin cement in there as well. That just helps to clean up any of the frayed edges. So I'll do that once I've got it sorted. So we're going to have two LEDs, and again I'm going to need to do some priming before I actually attach these in place, but basically you're going to have an LED sort of positioned, you know, in there somewhere like that, and also one on the other side. So what I want to do is run the wire along here, and then I want to go through this hole here, and then I want to lead both leads out through the middle. So I've got to do the same on the other side. So I'm just using the same 1.2 mil drill, and what I'm going to do is try and drill straight across here. Now I'm sure there's other ways of doing this, the way you could do the wiring for these kits, but this was just the way that I found that I can maintain the decks the way they are without, you know, punching holes through them, and without any wires sort of showing. Okay, so now you should be able to see. So LED, the wire will go through that hole, come out the other side, and then come out the back through the centre. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So we've got a hole on that side, hole on that side. They both go through to the centre. So that way, if I show on the blue one. Okay, so to give you an idea of how I've done the wiring, and of course I've just held all this stuff in with blue tack for now, but you can see here the LED is just blue tacked in place. The wire actually goes through the hole. It actually goes through this piece on the inside and then comes out through the side and down to the gap that's sort of down in here. So there's a hole that will go through the center here, so that when this is attached like this, the wire will go through that hole, out the middle, and into this cavity here. So I can drill a hole here. Okay, so you see we've got a hole through there. And the other thing you want to do is we want to have an LED up the back here. So there'll be a lot sort of happening as far as the wires going in here, and there'll be another one coming out. So if we look at the blue one, the prototype. Alright, so we have the wires from the two engines coming into the centre through this cavity. There's also an extra one at the back of this deck, and then they'll sort of come out holes on the sides, and then they will go down into the bowels of the ship. So that's the plan. First of all, grind out just a little bit in here, just to allow for the wire to sort of poke through. So I'm going to change my grinding bit. Yeah, you can see I've probably gone a bit too fast, so it's actually melted a bit of the plastic, but that's alright. That's we just cut that off. And once I've sort of drilled all the holes on these pieces here, what I'll do is I'll go around with some Tamiya extra thin just to clean them up and smooth them out a little bit. So, I've got the one for the back of this deck. The other thing I need to do is get a couple of holes in here. If you wanted to, you could just put the wires straight through the decks all the way to the bottom to where the stand is, because you're probably not going to see the wires coming through, but I thought, well, if I'm doing this, I'll try to make it as clean as possible. But in reality, you could actually just run the wires through the centre, this centre bit through here, all the way down to the bottom. And it might be a lot less stuffing around than what I'm doing. Do the same on the other side. And as I've got to paint it all up first, but as I'm wiring this thing through, I think I'll use some of the UV resin just to hold the wires in place, like that, or a bit of super glue, because it is fiddly, and some of the wires will need to take a reasonably sharp turn. So alright. Alright, so all the extra thin's going to do is just take down any of those little burrs around the hole, just smooth things out a little bit. You really don't want sort of any any sort of sharp edges, of course, with the wires. I mean, it'll be fine once it's all set in place, but you just don't want to be sort of dragging wires around any edges that are a bit sharp. So you sort of see it just smooths everything out a little bit, cleans it all up. So it's a good thing to do when you've got the once you've done all your drilling and grinding. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is in the next level. Alright, so this piece. So the next deck down, we want the wire to come out the side, go along here and come down the middle here. And the reason for that is because the deck that's sort of underneath, I'll put that in place. You can see here we don't want the wire to come straight down because it'll interfere with the deck below it. So we need to bring it out here and come down between these two pegs. So I'm just going to grind out a little bit of a gap there so that the wires won't interfere when we put the sides on. After a bit of clean up, the wire can come out of this hole, go under that peg and down through that cutout, so it's not going to interfere with the sides. When you're planning this out, this is really where it's really important that you are able to pull apart the pieces really easily, so that you can sort of just go back and check if you know, if I'm going to drill a hole here, will it interfere or be visible? You know, is it going to affect any of the other parts? Okay, so what we're going to do here is just run a bit of extra thin on the edge to clean up that cutout. Yeah, it looks like it was sort of part of the model. That's the way it should be. Alright, let that dry. Because we are going to be running the wires under this peg here, we want to the corresponding hole that's got to go into, we need to actually cut a bit off so it doesn't get, so the wire doesn't get crimped in there. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I've got all this around the right way before I start sort of drilling any more holes or cutting away of anything on the sides. So I'm just going to put together the top deck because that's all I need in order to determine which side goes where. Okay, so you can see that if the wire's going under this peg here, then if I turn it over to the corresponding hole, then we can see that this may crimp the wire. So what I'm going to do is actually just grind away half of it, and I can show you on the prototype that I put together that I've just showed you. So it still locates on that peg, but it just means that the wire going under the peg is not crimped by this bit. And I can just do this with a craft knife, I think. So you can sort of see that I've just chopped away at the bottom of it. So it'll still locate on the top fine. It just means that the wire going underneath the peg won't be crimped. And of course I need to do that for the one on the other side. So again, for the other side, we're going to have the wire coming out of this hole underneath this peg and coming along here and then down. So I'm just going to check that I get the right right hole, so it'll be that one. And again, I'm just going to cut it about halfway. But again, it's just going to stop that wire getting crimped there. I'm going to grind away at this particular area through here, so that the wires that will come through on the side will be able to go through this gap, because these two sides here, they're squashed up hard against the deck. I'm going to grind out this area in here, and so that the wires can go straight down. It's very tight in here, so basically there's a piece that sort of sandwiches flat on top of this, which means we need to sort of cut out a bit of a gully here so the wires have got somewhere to go. So that's what I'll be doing, quite a bit of grinding in here. Change my grinding bit, I think, to, so this is just a round sort of tipped grinding bit. Just going to get a thinner grinding bit to get in this gap here. I don't want to sort of, I don't want to break through on the other side of the base. Definitely getting a cheap set like this of nail grinder bits gives you a lot of flexibility on your, the way you actually grind this stuff away. Just making sure I'm not breaking through on the other side. Just got to keep in mind that the way that I've wired this, there's going to be 8 wires coming through, and even though they're quite thin gauge, when you've got 8 of them together, it's going to start thickening things up. So you sort of want to make sure that you've got enough room that they can move reasonably freely. Because I didn't do it on the prototype, but we need to basically set up a tunnel, if you like, of the wires going in here, so that I can feed them through and they're not going to get crimped, when these pieces are sort of sandwiched with the lower deck. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is run some to me extra thin. This will just help smooth out all those barbs that have come across from the grinding, and smooth things out a bit better. So, alright, so you can see I've sort of ground out where the base comes in at this end. So I've sort of ground that out. There's now a clear path for the wires to go. Now the next thing I need to do is work out, I've got to check to see whether I've got any small plastic tubing that I can use or rig something up, because the wires are going to come down from this side, but I need them to basically not go over these two parts. They need to sort of go in this line, and when you're getting it all together, it's very hard to sort of get at the wires and make sure they've gone into that gully. So I need something that I can sort of feed them under, through there and out the hole, and they're going to stay in that gully there. So that's the next thing that I need to sort out. After a lot of messing around and a lot of fiddly work, I think I've sorted out how to prevent the wires being crimped when this is sandwiched to the lower deck. So what I've done here, and I'm sorry I didn't film it, it was just so fiddly, and yeah, there's a lot of messing around until I got it right. So but what I've done is I've used some of this evergreen rectangular tube, and I have, so this stuff is rectangular in shape, the profile of it there. And I've literally just cut a slither and then cut it in half, so like that, and then cut it into small strips like that. I tried a couple other ways, but so that means that when I put this piece on, you can see, I need to make sure that both of these are coming out the side. So now hopefully you can see we have two LEDs coming out that gap in the bottom, and then it'll go up to that little gap along that line and through that hole and out the back. And of course we've got the same on the other side. Yeah, you can see coming out that side, and then of course they'll all feed out through here where the stand will go. So we're getting there as far as the modifications go. The next step will be for me to sort out the stand. So yeah, have a look at the blue one. It's just a little bit of metal rod cut down to size, and I also cut a slit in the top to allow the wires to go through. So I'll go away and cut that up and show you what that looks like. So for the stand, I've used a hollow metal pipe, and the stuff that I'm using is this. It's that 1/8 inch, 3.18 millimeters. So it's yeah, just over 3 millimeter diameter, outer diameter, which means that the hole for where the base goes into it, I've got a 3mm drill bit, and I'm just, you know, sort of running it through just to make sure that it's at least 3mm, and you'll find it's pretty close. But the other thing you'll need to do is go in with a round needle file and just file it just a little bit, because what you want is for this to go into the hole snugly, but you don't necessarily want it to just freely sort of spin around. So you want to sort of be able to make it push tight. There we go. So you can see that's just in there, because it won't be able to go any higher than you know, these flange bits in here, because there's a piece that sort of sits flush with it, which is why I've had to cut a slit into the pipe, so that way the wires can sort of go in and straight down, and the top piece, let's try and demonstrate this. So the top piece of this is actually going to butt up against the top of that. So you see there's got to be a gap there for the wires to sort of go through and down and out through the pipe. So that's the yeah, that's the bit of pipe that I've used. And I haven't made it terribly high. I mean, if you look at the actual stand that comes with it, it's I've only made it sort of about 1 inch, 27 millimeters. You know, it doesn't have to be high. Now for the I guess this is all about the stand, but for the base of the stand, what I'm going to use is one of these. So these are plumbing, PVC plumbing caps, and these ones are for 50mm pipe. And so there's like a, you know, logo thing on the top. So what I've done is I've just sanded it back, and this is still pretty rough. You can sort of see the sanding marks, but eventually I'll get it sanded smooth. I've drilled a 3mm hole in the top, and again, just because the pipe is a little bit bigger than 3mm, I've just sort of got the needle file in there and just hollowed it out a little bit, so that way I can fit this in and it's nice and tight. If I need to, I can maybe put a little bit of a two-part epoxy once I sort of get all the wires in place, but I don't think I'll need to. This thing's not going to be moved around a lot. The good thing about these PVC caps is they've got a little bit of weight to them, so it means that you know, they're not going to move around easily. And I mean, you could even put some weights in there or some lead shot or something if you wanted to give it a lot more weight, but yeah, I just find it really sturdy base. So as far as the switch for turning it on, I'll be using one of these. These are just a little straightforward toggle switch, but when you're buying these, you need to make sure that the length of the thread is going to be long enough so that you can tighten it up, because these PVC, they have quite a thick wall, so you can see there that there's enough length on the thread that I'll be able to get it through the hole and also be able to tighten it up on the other side with the nut. So that's what I'll do, I'll just feed it through. The nut on the other side is pretty rough. Of course it'll look a lot cleaner once it's all painted up and everything. But there you just have your toggle switch. So pretty simple sort of stand. I mean, this switch, I don't know if I'll cut it down maybe or put a rubber stop over it. I don't know. It's fine. I've sort of put it at the back, at the base, so the you know, the craft will be sitting sort of like that. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. And if I wanted to, I could print out some nameplates and sort of put them across the front or on the top. So that's the switch. For the battery, I will be using just a coin cell battery, so I'll just use one of these. Haven't quite worked out how I'm going to mount it. The problem with mounting it flat to the bottom is it's going to be difficult to get the battery out. So I might have it sort of stuck up on raise it up a little bit on a block, or I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but worst case scenario, it'll just be hanging loose in the wires and you know, just a bit of blue tack or something holding it in place. It's not that much of an issue. So the wires will be coming down through the metal through this hole with the stand, wired up to the battery and the switch. There'll probably be a resistor in there as well, and that's going to be pretty much it. So that's the base sorted. Getting back to the wiring of this guy, I want to show you how I sort of basically position all the wires. So we'll give it a bit of a dry run. So first thing first, and I think what I'll do is I'll probably only do just one of the engine ones, just to sort of show you, because it gets really fiddly when you're sort of looking at doing multiple wires at the same time, and I don't think it'll make for particularly good YouTube watching. So I'm going to use a bit of blue tack, and I'm going to take one of these LEDs, and the first thing I'm going to do is thread it through the holes of the engine. And of course that LED will be up against the hole there, but essentially you can see it sort of goes through that peg hole and then comes out through the middle. So of course there'll be one on the other side as well. So what I'm going to do is just put a bit of blue tack in there just to hold it in place, and instead of blue tack I will end up using some UV resin, a little bit of super glue. For the purposes of demonstration, it'll sort of show you what's going on. Okay, so then we have this piece. It doesn't matter which side it comes out through this piece. Okay. So you get a little bit of an idea, and of course the other one would do the same thing, and there'll be an LED in here that you know, scoots out through the back and out the side. So the next bit is to get this white. Again, get it right eventually. Okay. So this is where we run the wires under the peg. Alright, there we go. So it runs under the peg and then it goes through that little gap. So what I'm going to do is again just a little bit of blue tack just to hold it in position. Doesn't have to be pretty at this stage, just showing you the path of the wires. Okay. So out through the side, down the bottom. And then this is where you're going to, oops, I should put the top piece on as well. So I should say the LED here is actually going to come out this side hole. Put that on. So it'll come out the side here, and then it will join the other wires coming out at this hole. So it'll go through there, under the peg, and out down the side here. So there's already a pre-made hole there ready to go for that one, which we'll be using. Alright, so stand in place. Okay, so one more through. This is very much like like sewing, I think. It's through the wires through very narrow spaces. Okay, one. So I've just thread them under those two sort of hook areas, and the next thing will be just pull them through a bit more, and of course thread them through the pipe. Alright. So if you can imagine, 8 wires sort of coming through here. Try and pull them through without getting caught on anything. Here we go. Now, just to get this bottom bit, you can see it's not quite sort of in properly, so I just get a toothpick and just sort of sandwich it down like that. And so if you can imagine, there'll be 2 more wires coming out of that hole and sort of feeding down on that side, and then there'll be 4 wires on the other side just to sort of even it out a bit. But that's essentially how the path of the wiring goes. When I get to final assembly and I'm actually sort of putting it through, I will show in a lot more detail, because it's a little bit difficult. While everything's held in blue tack, it's not that solid in place. So it's just it's going to be a bit easier sort of showing you as I've super glued or put everything through. So the last step will be obviously to feed everything into the base. So that sort of gives you a bit of an idea. I think that's probably about as clean a solution as you can get. You can still see through the... I haven't winded it properly, have I? Yeah, you can still sort of see through the guts of it, and yeah, I think that's probably going to be the cleanest way. Once I've painted this all black, it should all look fairly neat and tidy. So that's essentially the process for setting up the wiring and the sort of modifications I've had to do to the kit, the grinding out of areas and that sort of thing. So in the next video I'll be starting to obviously do the painting. I'm going to have a fair bit of masking to do, I think. If we have a look at one of the boxes, with the newer versions of these kits, they do actually come with water slide decals, but these don't. So I want to get at least these sort of stripes in, the lighter stripes, and of course the dark grey for the decks. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that sort of level there. These are all going to be very thin strips of tape. So yep, next stage is priming and painting. So we'll see you in the next video. See you later.